Welcome, guys. Christina and Harmby from Vanta and Mintlify. Hands up in the room. Any users of Vanta? Okay, decent. Mintlify? Okay, definitely a few. Let's start then with maybe a quick elevator pitch from both of you. An explanation on what you do. Christina?
Great. So at Vanta, we help businesses earn and prove trust. So earn trust helps set up initial security programs and get kind of baseline security programs in place. Then you've done all that work, help you go use that to prove trust to enterprise buyers through things like compliance audits. You're very well known for SOC 2 and our billboards. There's a compliance piece, there are questionnaires, trust centers, basically all that ways to take all the hard security work you've done and use it to build credibility with your
We're having some audio issues. Have we got Christina's mic?
Hello. Is this any better? You sound soon to me. Maybe not.
Is her mic on? Oh. No, wait, that's me. Yeah.
Harmby, would you like to give us your elevator pitch?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Hambi. I'm a co-founder and CTO at Mintlify. We create public-facing developer documentation for other companies. We serve roughly 20% of every YC batch, and we work with companies like Anthropic, X, and Coinbase to power their developer documentation hub.
Have we got your microphone back?
Maybe. Can anyone hear me? Is this any better? Woo! Okay, great. Awesome.
Should we hear about Vanta again?
Sorry. Be more succinct this time. Okay. Vanta helps businesses earn and prove trust. So the earn trust help build out initial security programs, scale those so you have a sense of the founder are by doing the baseline reasonable things. And then you've done that work, use it to prove trust and get credibility with enterprise buyers through things like SOC 2 audits or other compliance audits, questionnaires, trust centers, all sorts of other ways to take all that hard work you've done and use it to build trust with your customers.
Oh.
Some feedback. I think we're good.
It's an adventure.
This is what happens when you add a third person to the stage. It just is chaos. So the fun thing about both of your products is it's things that, like, when you hear it, you're like, this clearly should have existed before. Like, why was no one building Vanta before Vanta?
Because you say compliance to an engineer and they run screaming from the room. Kind of actually.
So no one wants to work on compliance. Compliance is like a...
Paul Graham called them schlep businesses, but like the schleppy businesses. Yeah.
So when you applied to YC,
yeah,
they were like, yes, finally someone's willing to...
No, honestly, like in 2017, 2018, my best estimate, which was bad, was there were 1,000 SOC 2s in the world. And the pitches were going to SOC 2 every startup. And they were like, all 20 of them, you're going to get them. They were mostly like, you seem kind of crazy, but maybe crazy in a reasonable way. So we'll see what happens.
And is it something that changed in the world?
Yeah.
Because when we started Supabase, it was 2020. As soon as we started trying to sell to anyone who wasn't just a solo developer, they were like, well, have you got SOC 2?
Yeah.
Was that new, or has that always been the case?
Yeah, so kind of two things happened. One more us and one not us. The not us, and we were just very lucky, was at the end of 2018, the body that regulates SOC 2, it's actually the American Institute of CPAs, like financial accountants, they changed their rules, totally independent of us, they didn't know we existed, to say, hey, if you get a SOC 2, you should make sure your vendors are also secure, and we recommend you do that with a SOC 2. Independent. That was just lucky. But it wasn't a hard rule, but it was a strong nudge, I would say. And then I think what we did at Vanta, and this was the goal, but it's surprising that it kind of worked, was we dropped the cost of getting a SOC 2, the dollar cost, but really the time cost. Like previously, it really took your CTO a year to go do a thing, and so no one did it. And an enterprise was like, I don't really want to ask. Like, I know how expensive that is for your CTO, so I won't ask you. But then when it got a lot easier, I was like, oh, I'm going to ask you for that thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And so those two things started the snowball.
Yeah, it makes sense. Harmby, Mintlify is clearly something that should exist in the world. What were people doing before? Were they like writing their own documentation, or?
Yeah, there are other competitors. And when we were pivoting for a year, our story is, like 7 different pivots before we landed on the idea that we have today. And we were always in dev tools because we really resonated with developers. And at this point, we had gone through YC and we still hadn't really figured it out yet. And so we were talking to our other like fellow YC founders about their problems, and they kind of told us that public facing documentation was not solved yet. And so like we knew that there were other things that existed. What we kept on hearing over and over again was that it was clunky, it wasn't super like developer friendly. And so we kind of just built an MVP within a week and then started selling it. And I remember hearing your story, like it started out as a spreadsheet. Like we did, I guess, something very similar where like the MVP was just a website that you couldn't update at all, and people were willing to pay for it. And so we're like, all right, there's clearly validation here. It's clearly like people want this a lot more than anything else that we've built before. And like, you know, back then, if you told us that this is what we're building and this is what like we're gonna be working on, like we probably wouldn't believe you. But I think, you know, when people like pull you within that direction and you're solving a real pain point, like it's exciting.
And was there a moment that you knew that you had product market fit, or was it blurry, or how did that feel?
I think the product market fit definitely came over time, but I think we knew that there was something different here when we showed like MVP to somebody and they're like, send me the Stripe link. Like they were immediately willing to pay, as opposed to like people say product market fit feels like chasing a boulder down a hill as opposed to pushing a boulder up a hill. It definitely felt like there was a lot of validation here, as in previous products we were pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yeah. And I think one of the insights is, if I'm not wrong, that it's your API first as opposed to UI first.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. That's so yeah, our first MVP was just a website and the users couldn't even update the docs at all. And then we started selling this thing. We got like our first 10 customers and they're like, guys, we need to update the docs. And we're like, okay, what can we do quickly? Like, let's just like make a GitHub app and build a CLI that lets you like preview your docs locally. And we always thought that this was a like roundabout approach that we need to deprecate very soon, but that was not the case at all. It's really like the preferred way for developers to work. They get to stay in their like IDE, and nowadays like now they can leverage AI tools like Cursor as well to write their docs and reference their code base. And this part of our product and this design decision that we made early on is core to our product, and like it's a part of it that has product market fit. So developers like CLIs, they don't like buttons, they like to just stay where they're working.
Yeah, that's great. And Christina, on the product market fit question, was there a moment that you felt that we definitely have it?
Yeah, I think I've like very much co-signed the, you know, boulder downhill, boulder uphill, or like if you are, or if I think back to myself and I was like, there are these moments where I'd wonder if I had product market fit. If you are in fact sitting and wondering, the answer is no, like deeply. There is no wondering, or like the wonder me round down. And so I can give you like specific anecdotes if helpful. I think the overwhelming sense was like, it was just working better than it should. Like we had this really janky website that was black and white because a designer friend of mine had been like, you don't know how to design with color, so just don't. So everything was black and white. We were using Blueprint at the time because it was 2017. And so it was just this like, as one user called, the brutalist white website. It's like, it was terrible, except it worked, right? Like, except people were literally paying us $10,000 due next week to access the Brutalist white website, right? And you look at them, you're like, there's no, like, this makes no sense and these people are totally irrational. And that was both true, but also like the Brutalist white website got them to an outcome they wanted in the way their alternative was go find a consultant and spend tens and dozens of hours with them and pay them $50,000. And so it was rational, but I think it's just kind of things like that where you're like, or even, you know, when I started selling Vanta, like, again, I did so much better than I should have. I didn't know how to sell. I mean, I still kind of don't, but like, it just all worked better than it had any right to.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask about branding because any other compliance company in the world has a shield or a lock and key or something that you have a purple llama.
Yes.
Why do people trust the purple llama?
Yeah, we maybe should use the llama less often to that point sometimes, but like actually there were two kind of, we did think about brand early on, which both felt very silly at the time because it's like such a luxury good. Again, you're like, I have no business, like I'm basically unemployed and yet I'm dreaming about brands, like surefire way to continue to be unemployed. And there were parts where like everything is lock and key, everything is like red and green and black and white, and all the security messaging is like, basically you're an idiot, and if you don't buy my tool, you're going to get breached, and then the rest of the world will know you're an idiot. And like it just like was gross. And so what we tried to do was like, think our users are smart and our brand attribute, but actually is like with a wink. And I think when like Vanta's at its best, there's like this winking kind of jokey part. And I think the like compliance that doesn't talk too much phrase and billboard is like a great example of when we've nailed it. I think sometimes we use the llama in a way that we mean to be winking and it actually seems really childish. So there's like gradations there. But I think like at our best, that is what we do.
Yeah, great. Harmby, on brand, where did the name Mintlify come from?
Yeah, so we're always in DevTools, and I was actually ideating, like looking at like the slash, like for comments and like the asterisks and stuff. And we also really just fixated on the word mint. And Mintlify is just mint plus simplify. And the .com was available for $10. So ideally it was 2 syllables and not 3, but it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was Vanta.com available?
It was squatted, and it was basically the price of a used car, just roughly our budget. Yeah, good purchase.
Yeah, I think we were Supabase.io for maybe a year before we purchased the .com, and then we had a friend of ours who. So weirdly enough, Supabase.com was registered by someone who lived in Singapore, which I don't know if it was a coincidence or if like Copple had seen it somewhere in Singapore on the street, the brand, but coincidentally the same place. And so we had a friend of ours who's Singaporean go and do the negotiations. I believe we got it for like, was it 10 grand?
Oh, that's good.
Which now seems like a great deal. At the time seemed very expensive.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, we were 20,000, but I'd never sent a wire, and so I stiffed him $20 on the YC accidentally. 19,980.
Screams trustworthy. Oh, great. And so you both went through YC. Harmby, you went straight from college, is that right?
Yes.
Is that a path that you recommend to others, or?
So my co-founder and I were seniors in college when we applied to YC. And when we applied, we promised each other that we would drop out if we got in, because it was worth it. We're looking at Airbnb and Vanta, and we're like, oh, okay, like this is worth it. Like this is a good enough brand for us to do this for. And we eventually got in, and I was sitting in class, and I was like, we're like just about to graduate. And so I went to the guidance counselor for 3 weeks straight and was able to finagle a graduation. So technically I graduated in 3.5 years, and my co-founder did not. And then we did like our senior year our spring semester of senior year was basically YC. And we stuck to this timeline as opposed to like deterring anything, because like the urgency was there. Like we're like, we need to make sure that we're building that, like the timing is now. Like we were still figuring it out, but like there was like no time to wait essentially in our mind. And so that's kind of like why we went for that. And nowadays when I meet other students, my advice is like, if you want to do it, just do it. Like there is like, you don't need to go to big tech and then learn how to do a startup. If your end goal is to be a founder, just go for it. I have a bit of a full send mentality nowadays.
Yeah. And I saw actually that YC just announced that if you are in college and you apply, you can now defer. So they're not going to force you to drop out of college, if any of you are thinking about that. Because I know PG is very adamant that you should finish your college. It's a good experience. Christina, you were a VC before you were a startup founder. It's usually the other way around. What made you go from investing to being a founder?
Yeah, I basically got really lucky and straight out of school worked at Union Square Ventures, an early stage firm in New York. Dumb luck, very lucky. And then Jaw, and I worked for 3 guys, and they sort of didn't tell me what to do, so I sort of figured it out, and it was great. It's wonderful. And the job was awesome in lots of ways, because it was basically run around and talk to founders and figure out what's interesting, and then like figure out where the world is going, but kind of actually, because that's how USV worked. And I loved it. And I kind of felt, and it like appealed to all the parts of me that wanted to be an academic and wanted to be a professor, just like what I thought I wanted to do until I was like 22, because you get to run around and learn about new things all the time. The part that I didn't like was also like academia, where you're like, cool, I learned all the things, now what? And in venture, I think it's like, oh, well, now you get to sit and see if it makes you a lot of money. Like, why are you complaining? And I just kind of was like, no, I want to do things. I want to do things. I want to do things. And so I was very conflicted, and I was like a super obnoxious 24-year-old because I was like, my life is so hard. I've got to figure this out. And I apologize to everyone who had to deal with me at that point. But like, anyway, I kind of eventually, and with some pushing from some good friends, it's kind of like, again, go try it. Like, what's the worst that happens? You like get a job into a big tech company, like, man, sucks for you. Like that's a great outcome in like every room except this one where people don't want to work in big tech, but like in the rest of the world, like that is not downside. Like go try it.
And then is it true that after being a VC, you took time out to learn how to build things?
Yeah. So basically, I was like, okay, I kind of am angsty, but like don't want to be an investor. I want to be a founder. I know there's lots of people who start companies and can't code and do like deeply, but I don't want to be one of them, and I don't think I can be one of them. So I'm going to take my bonus, which was like kind of subsequently like a finance job. So it's like my finance bonus, what I hadn't spent. And then I lived off of that for like the next 2.5 years and like truly wasn't unemployed, like kind of did not have health insurance. Told my mom the professor was on sabbatical. She'd be like, when are you going back? And you're like, right about that sabbatical. But anyway, and like just taught myself to code, and I made a bunch of stuff, none of which you've ever heard of or ever used. And sort of learned how to make things.
And was it useful?
Yeah, deeply.
Because now, so you had a co-founder for the first couple of years of Vanta. Now you're on your own. How difficult is that?
Oh, I mean, if you have a co-founder you work well with, that is in fact the best case outcome. I think if you have a co-founder that you don't work well with, there's lots of like negative things for you all in the company and the product and the team that kind of fall from that. I think, in some ways when my co-founder departed Vanta, like there was just this moment of clarity where you're like, okay, you need to like pick your decision, like who makes it. And it was very clear I did. And I actually found that very empowering and also clarifying. Whereas before it was like, well, we talk about it and and whatever. Like you have whatever the co-founder dynamic is, which can be very healthy. But there was just a part where you're like, oh, okay, well, I got to decide and I got to, got to do the best I can. But I actually found, again, clarifying and kind of empowering. But yeah, is that like the best outcome? Or like if I had a magic wand and could change all the variables? Like, no.
Yeah. I imagine it's very difficult because one of the benefits I feel of having a co-founder in Copple is that when you have those days or weeks where you're kind of down, the other person then sort of drives forwards, and then vice versa. So you always feel like you're making progress regardless. Hambi, how many co-founders in your company?
Yeah, I have one other co-founder, so 2 of us.
And both technical, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can build very quickly.
Yes.
How do you split up the responsibilities?
Yeah, so I lead product and engineering, and he leads like sales, go to market, and everything. And so, but he still is like involved in product as well, and we make these decisions together. So I'm very thankful. I think for that 1 year of pivoting, I'm actually very thankful for that time, because I think we learned how to work with each other during that time, like just the 2 of us. And now, honestly, we do work quite independently because we have a ton of trust between the 2 of us. Yeah.
And since he's technical, is he like psyched to be doing the sales, or like how does he feel about that?
I think like honestly, like my job now is a lot of recruiting as well. And so I think we both understand the duties that we need to, do for the company. He doesn't complain about it too much, but every so often you see a PR come out from him like late at night or on the weekend because he wants to be coding. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Like it's always like, as a founder, you basically just have to do the bits that no one else is doing at that time. So for us, it's been very fluid. Hands up, are there any solo founders here? Okay, quite a few.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyone applied for YC or planning to apply for YC? Okay. Any tips for people like looking to fill out their first YC application?
Oh, okay. I'll try to. This might sound a little tongue in cheek, kind of is, but I'll try to explain it. Like, there is a lot of advice online about how to fill out the YC application. It kind of works. Like, it's good advice, and also like your path is different than mine, and go for it. If you want to do that, go for it. I also think the goal, at least for me, is like not to get into YC. It is to like build a large, sustainable, enduring business, and like YC wants to fund large, enduring, sustainable, large businesses. And so I would like almost like fill out the application, and like maybe there are some like kind of tricks on the side or like tips on the side you should use, but like really think about optimizing it for like what have I done to help me build a large business, and I have confidence in this opportunity being large, and how do I convey that? And like one form of that is YC, and one format would be like first employees and investors, and I don't know, first landlord if you have to convince someone to give you rent when you have no money in your bank account and nothing to like securitize, whatever. But like if you kind of keep the focus on like it is to build a large business, and like yes, I would like to get in YC on that journey, but like I'm going to optimize up here, not just for my application. And there's lots of like really good application tips online too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ambi, any tips?
Yeah, to me, I really appreciated YC because I feel like before I did YC, I was like just a software engineer, and then afterwards, I was much more business oriented and thinking about like the important metrics that you need to be thinking about to build a healthy, sustainable business. I feel like I do really like having a co-founder, so I feel like having a co-founder is nice, and being able to, have someone in your life that you can do that with. I totally recommend finding a co-founder. And second thing is just have extreme clarity of thought on what you're doing and like conveying that. Like, explain to me like I'm a fifth grader type, or like, it should be like you should be able to describe it as if it's on a napkin. That kind of clarity is, I feel like, is what YC is looking for. And I'm like, and I think that's also like how Paul Graham writes his essays. Like, just keep it really simple. We don't need to make this complicated. It should make sense just from a first glance.
Yeah. So our tagline here is building a weekend, scale to millions. We've talked a little bit about the building a weekend, getting started. On the scaling side, one of the things that we get asked about a lot is hiring. So like growing the team out. I'd be interested to hear what was the first big gap in your co-founding team that you just knew you had to fill with someone really good, Christina?
Yeah, so our sort of early hiring trajectory first was a compliance person, which I would not recommend unless you run a compliance company and don't have a background in compliance. Then I'd recommend it. But like little, specific. Then it was just 5 engineers. And then it became a game of like, what was I spending lots of time on? And so actually the next person was a support person because I was like answering emails from customers. And then the person after that was, we like invented, I think I would not recommend we like invented a role because we're this unique business and we're so special and like we have this unique thing no one else has. And like some of that is true. And some of it is like also, at least in our case, like we're a SaaS business. And what we were describing was basically a combination of 3 roles, which made it very hard to recruit for because we had no brand and we didn't know any of these people. And so you walk around and are like, hi, I want this weird titled role that is like excellent at 3 things. And people are like, good for you. Like, have fun, Like what we should have hired was a customer success manager, kind of in the support vein and customer vein. Not what we hired. That's what we should have hired. And then it was a AE, like a seller. But it was kind of this exercise of like, where is my time going and how do I take like 3 hours of support emails a day and give it to someone, and then like what comes next, and you take that and give it to someone.
But the support emails was self-inflicted, right? Because you would send out emails that people thought was a bot.
Yes, so some of it, yeah, they were self-inflicted, and like sort of my like one of my mental models for product building is you're trying to build something and give it to people. And if someone cares enough to write you back, even to tell you you suck, like that is amazing, actually. They have a job. They are trying to do things in the universe. Like that they care enough to tell you, great, terrible, annoying, deeply problematic, whatever, is like is truly a gift. And so we would do things to like induce the emails, and then I was very stringent about like getting replies. And it wasn't always like we've addressed everything immediately. I mean, that's awesome if you can do it, but like getting replies, because these people took time out of their busy days to tell us something, and you're like, they actually cared again. And as someone who's like built long lists of things that no one wanted, it was like, this is so amazing. People want it. Like, don't break it.
There's a meme at Supabase. After 7 days, if you have an inactive database, you get an email from me telling you that we're going to shut it down.
Yep.
And the responses on these emails are like so varied.
Yep.
Some people are like, yeah, I totally understand. Most people don't respond because they think it's a bot, but I handwrite every one of those emails. I hope you guys know. But then some people are super angry because they feel like they've been called out because they haven't been working on the project for 7 days. So but the anecdote behind people thought it was a bot for you.
Okay, so these were actually like in product well, they weren't in product. In theory, we pretended they were in product notifications. We just didn't quite know like what we had ideas of what we should send, but what should those emails be? What should the cadence be? What should the frequency be? Right. And it was mostly like experimenting with those things when we had like, I mean, not even no notification system, no SES queue, it was just like, and then, we'd go build that. But like, it was a like first, there's just a bunch of other stuff we should build before then. And then I could hand over like a really clean spec, i.e. these emails, this cadence, this copy, go. And that was really easy to prototype and do.
Yeah, amazing. One thing I wanted to cover before we finished was people who discover your product. I did a quick test with ChatGPT and asked it for a recommendation for a SOC 2 compliance company. You'll be happy to know that Vanta was.
God, you're lucky.
I think Mintlify also does some stuff here. Like, have you got any tips on how to be more LLM ingestible?
We think about this all the time as a documentation company for like, servicing docs for other companies. Now we're building docs not only for humans, but for LLMs. And so we're experimenting with a lot of things. A lot of new standards are coming up, even MCP, LLMs.txt, like surfacing things in Markdown. I've also heard about some like Reddit tips where you're supposed to like Reddit inject or like, comment about your product within Reddit. I have to mess around with that a lot more, but it's generally, I would say that like having good content obviously matters a lot more too if the LLMs are reading it and learning, reinforcement learning and all of that. So everything is very new and people are very scared, I would say. But I think we're moving fast and adopting quickly to make sure that we're leveraging LLMs to reference our products, which I know is a huge thing for Supabase.
Yeah. And I credit it to, there's a lot of people in the community writing content about Supabase, which I think was just right time, right place. That all got swept up by the LLMs. So now they recommend us, which is great. But I also think we put a lot of effort into everything you can do in the Supabase dashboard. You should be able to do programmatically via the API, which isn't always the case. And it's kind of easy to not do that when you're growing quickly, is to keep parity. But we put a lot of effort into it. And that was just one of the accidents that happened, was then the LLM as well. Like, well, I can use this out the box even before MCP. And it worked really well. Great. And you just launched a Mintlify agent. Can you tell us about this?
Yes. So we've put in so much work to make sure that the frameworks are there in order to have good documentation. And, like you have the nice UI and search and everything, but, it all doesn't matter if your content is wrong and out of date. And this is kind of like a cultural problem where developers don't like doing this either, I guess similar to compliance, which is why it makes a great product for you to, ask another company to do for you. And so we're just making it as easy as possible in order for the content to stay up to date. And it's been super fun. It's kind of interesting, like building this agent and slowly gaining trust with it over time as well, in spite of the fact that it's like an AI. But yeah, I'm super, like, you guys should try it out if you hate writing docs. It's super fun.
Does anyone really love writing docs? Yeah. We go,
oh, I'll have to talk to you guys.
Oh, great. Great. Before we go, Christina, I have to ask, did you wear Supabase green deliberately today for us?
Yes.
Fantastic.
I wish I did. I wish I were this on it.
Nice. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.